introduce myself in a second, but I'm going to show you a nice promo video. I'm very proud of the work that everybody did to do it, and hopefully it's not too loud. Let's do a sound check. The space bar does not press play. Bug 1. Take notes, Cypress people. That's me.
Cypress 10 is finally here, and it's our biggest release yet. We've redesigned the Cypress experience to make way for component testing, an all-new way to test your application's front-end components. Web development has changed a lot over the years. Our favorite tools for building and designing applications now place individual, reusable components front and center. But testing tools haven't quite caught up yet. Today, testing those components can be a painful process because we run and debug our tests in a terminal instead of a real browser. But of course, in the terminal, you can't see and play with your components to make sure they're working in the same way that your users will use them in production. At Cypress, we have always had one goal: to create a best-in-class developer experience to test anything that runs in a browser. So today, Cypress is changing too. We're making all the power of our industry-leading end-to-end testing solution available for your components. With Cypress 10, you can test your projects with the testing type you choose. Start by adding end-to-end tests if your application is further along, or use component tests to test drive your UI development, or just work on a particularly difficult component in isolation. With component testing, you get everything you already love about Cypress: visual feedback in real time, as well as time travel debugging. And of course, your browser's dev tools, which you're already familiar with. It's a component workbench where testing is the focus. Cypress integrates with your existing development configuration and your favorite frameworks, making it easy to get started. And because your tests run in Chrome, you'll already be comfortable debugging them. Welcome to Cypress 10, the next generation of Cypress, with component testing.
All right, that's my talk. Bye. I figured this would give better, more concise context than I could in slides. And so I was like, let's start there. Let's start with the video that we worked so hard to produce. And then let's jump into slides. Why not? All right, so this talk, when I pitched it, is component testing with Cypress 10, Vite, and Vue. We've talked a lot about testing today. I'm like the 5th testing talk or something. And honestly, when I designed Cypress component testing, like as a concept, right, I didn't think of it as a test runner, really. I was like, this isn't, like, test runner is very small. Like, we want to target the entire development experience. Like, what is the start? Right, the start is that the designer gives you a Figma file, right? You look at the Figma file and you're like, all right, yeah, I can break that down visually. And then you want to build it. And then ideally, somewhere in the middle there, you're testing it. Somewhere. If you're a TDD convert, you are like testing before you even see the Figma mock. I'm kidding. But generally, I think of it as a component workbench more than a test runner. It just happens to be very good at testing. And so I would say that I'm more passionate about component-driven development than I am at testing. I gave this talk or a version of this talk a week ago at UA Amsterdam, and Tim Bennix, who follows Tim Bennix on Twitter? Wow. Follow Tim Bennix. He's great. He has really good YouTube content. He's like a VP of E at L'Oreal and uses Vue and React, and he's absolutely phenomenal. So shout out to Tim Bennix. So when he introduced me on stage, what he said was, here's a secret, Jess actually doesn't like testing, which you'll figure out. I started, here's like vintage me. I was 16 years old, this is 2012, holding 4 iPads. This is my little device lab. And I lived in Florida. I'm a native Floridian. Who here's from Florida? Nobody's from Florida. I mean, that's the truth though. Everybody from Florida is really not. They all just move south when it gets cold. So I was doing manual QA, then, I don't know, like a month later, automated QA, because I was like, what do you guys do when I give you the bugs? Like, what happens now? And they were like, let me show you on a whiteboard Big O notation. And I was like, oh, okay, let me sit down for this. My first language was Objective-C. Right now, I'm a staff engineer at Cypress, IO. I'm also a contributor to Vite-based and the maintainer of Vite-based utils, along with a handful of other folks. I've contributed to Vue and Vue.use, and generally, just in the Vue world, I dabble here and there. So I am a maintainer of Faker.js, so if you guys remember January, that was a thing. And the reason I jumped in is in my workshop, I talk a lot about making this component workbench, right? And making your components, your test code look realistic. And Faker.js is a great job of that, and you'll see that in the demo, I think. It depends. There's a choose your own adventure section, so you're ready. I'm also a Vue Mastery course instructor. I teach Vue test utils. I also teach testing library and mock service worker, so I teach all the things. And I've worn all the hats, right? Not only have I started as manual QA, I've been a front-end developer and an engineering manager at Cypress. So that's me. But let's take a step back. Let me slow down my talking. And I didn't bring any water either. This is on me. So why do we test? So Bart Ladeau gave a talk earlier today. But I break it down to confidence. Oh, she brings me water. Debbie, I love you. Debs is the best. And we can just leave this GIF up because everybody loves it. We test to get confidence. This is Bart talking about value number 2, which is trust. Your users, your bosses, your teammates. You want to test your code so that your stuff works, and then ultimately, your users trust your product. So if you're talking to somebody who's non-technical, right? Why do I have to spend time testing? Well, so your users trust your product. That's the final answer. So your users trust your product. Okay, so this is a Cypress talk. And isn't Cypress for end-to-end testing? Yes. You watched the video. What's the difference between end-to-end testing and component testing? And it comes down to the way that you compile the code. Histoire, which is the icon with the double rectangles, and Storybook and Cypress, all have the same technical challenge, which is that we would like you to compile your code in the same way that you intend to ship it onto the internet. You want to test the code in the way that it will be delivered to production, so that you are sure that you will not introduce bugs that are prod-only bugs. Raise your hand if you've had a prod-only bug. Go live. Yeah, exactly. And current ecosystem, most people use Jest and node-based test runners. And after also working in Vue-Jest and trying to maintain Jest transformers, which is the special compiler thing you have to do for Jest, I can say that Vite-based, Histoire, Cypress, and Storybook all have the same goals. We would like you to be able to reuse the build configuration you use normally. So we just find your Vite config if you're using Vite. We find your Webpack config if you're using Webpack. We find your create React app config painfully. And as of 15 minutes ago, we also find your Angular build config. 15 minutes ago, I pressured my coworker into pushing up his experimental Angular Webpack branch, and I will show you a demo of it if we get time. So Vite, Next, Nuxt, we all want to compile with the same flags because we all want to avoid prod-only issues. All right, that's Guillaume. His name is Akrium. He wrote Vue Dev Tools, and he's pretty cool. He also wrote Histoire. Cool. So the new way to open Cypress in component testing is Cypress open : component. I'll talk a little bit. I'll refer back to Alex's slides from earlier today. He talked about Vite's architecture And Cypress plays really nicely with that. Instead of routes, I'll do that again so you can just see the animation. Vite says server ready, it gets an entry point, and then it makes multiple requests for each route. Each route may import multiple modules. Cool. Cypress, it's just like hosting your code base as if it was a website, but each route is a spec file. It's conceptually actually pretty simple. We glob your file system, and then we look for things that match your spec pattern, and we make a website. Quotes, big quotes for the back. We make a website, and we host it, and then we visit it, and then we run tests on it. Let's see. So we could compare, or kind of jump around. Because I edit these slides as the talks go on, they're never really in an order that I particularly like. So let's do the fun thing. I know everybody has their laptops on their laps, but raise your hands. So I'm not going to make you get up, actually. But raise your hands if you want to refactor some existing Vuetify 3 tests with Cypress component testing. Like one person. All right, great. No, two. All right, great. No. All right, do you want to compare just the testing library with Cypress head-to-head? Yeah, okay, that's like 25. Do you want to test the Vue Mastery application where you like create an event, look at list of events, something like that? Deals with real data, fake data? No? Okay. Do you want to build a modal? Woos aren't extra. Woos don't count for extra hands. All right, so everybody wants to compare testing head-to-head. So the joke is that 2 and 3 are actually the same thing, and you're going to see a demo of number 1 at the end anyway. So thank you for your participation in this process. So let's go ahead and jump into Cypress. We watched the video. This is Cypress in something called global mode, which lets me switch between projects very, very quickly. It usually doesn't open up that large. It usually opens up like, I don't know, 600 pixels. And to accomplish comparing jest and testing library and like back to back, we're going to go through the Vuex fundamentals code that I use in my Vue Mastery course, where I taught the course in jest and testing library. And a few hours ago, I live on the edge. Holy crap. A lot of speakers are like, we don't live code, and I'm just like making changes in the audience. So a few hours ago, I was like, okay, I wonder if I could compare these head to head. And the answer is yes. So this is Cypress 10 in all of its lovely glory. You will see I have written 2 tests already for this jest application. That's fine. I'm going to show you the event card first. Cat adoption day is at 12 o'clock or midnight, depending on how you read it, on January 28th. And we're going to use a little life hack called Open an IDE, which makes my life very easy, though I rarely use it practically. And we're going to look at this test in Cypress, and then we're going to look at the sibling test in Jest. So event card.spec. This is the Jest test for it. It's kind of long. There's a lot of awaits. This is using testing library, which there's been so many talks on testing today that I don't feel like I need to backfill what testing library is. So the goal here is going to be to get the number of it blocks and coverage to be the same. So we have 4 tests, in my opinion. So it renders the event's data successfully. All right, so that's one goal. I'm going to delete everything inside of it except for it doesn't need to be async. Cypress automatically retries like everything, whether you want it to or not, which means that you never really have to think about the nature of asynchronicity on the web. It just like, Cypress just has its own internal command queue that it retries. We have a fancy name for it. It's called retriability. We also have actionability, which is very different. And finally, here we go. And I'm writing these all out like this because this is how you're supposed to do TDD, I hear. And I'm going to close out the Jest spec. Because what I think about is, how do I fulfill this contract to the user, right? So if we look at the event card by itself, actually what I like to do is, before I test anything, I just like to look at the website. So I'm going to start this JSON server, and then I'm also going to start the website. For this one, it's under npm run serve. Very nice. So this is what the website looks like, and this is the event card that we've been talking about. So when I approach testing literally anything, I look at a web page, and this is like life hacks for testing. This is not just Cypress, this is not Playwright, this is like life hacks for how do you determine what to test. I literally stare at the web page, which is also now on a monitor here, and I say, what is the most important information for the user right here? Well, that card's render, 1. In this card, what is the most important information? That I know when and where to show up and what it's called. That's the most important thing. So generally, I will structure my tests to match those needs first. I don't care about implementation detail. We haven't looked at card.view. I don't care how it's implemented at all. I just want to make sure that we can render the event's data successfuli. So let's look at the signature of the event card. We have sci-mount available. Sci.mount, event card, I hope. First step when you're testing is to make sure that when you import new things, it still works. The second thing is to make sure that when you call like sci.mount or you attempt to render to the page, and this is, again, life hacks for every test. There we go. Life hacks for every test framework you'll ever use is like make sure that when you mount the thing on the page, it compiles and it works. So answer is no, daily double. Yeah. Aw. I really asked for it doing these changes last minute. All right, we're going to switch over. We're going to switch over to a different demo because I don't want to debug why Webpack is failing to compile my chunk. When I said everybody has the same problems, I mean it. Like, if anybody's ever configured Storybook, you know my struggle. But let's go for the stress-free testing workshop, that environment I know and trust. Let's see. And our goal is still going to be to test the event card, by the way. Let's go for it. I think the bug is that I'm, in my haste, I did not upgrade. I think that's what I did wrong. But that's all right. Let's make an event card. Let's go to, I don't know, source components, event card sci.js. I'm going to use JSX optionally. It happens that I have Vite configured such that it handles JSX. And then I'm going to open my event card in here. Very nice. So now let's go ahead and jump to it. So stress-free, irony. And open it. VS Code remembers last week more than I do. When they wanted to build a modal. Built a modal last week. All right. Let's find our way around. So here we are inside of our event card sci.jsx under stress-free testing, viewconf.us. Very good. This is a different stress-free testing. All right. Debbie says this is stress testing, and it is. All right. This is all because I wanted to do the Angular thing at the end. Like, I definitely asked for this. Okay, cool. So let's build something. Let's build a modal. We all lose in this. We're going to build a modal. All right. Let's see. We got... Shit. I already did it. Damn it. All right. Let's go to the modal. Base modal. Yeah, that's what happened. I opened up the wrong stress-free testing thing over here. There's two of them. This one's under ViewConf US, and this one is not because I did it for Amsterdam. That's the bug. There we go. See them? Jerks. Let's see. So my goal in this, now that I've taken the energy out, my goal in this is to show you how to play with your components and mount them and do all the fun things. So right now we have a base modal called base modal Sci. And we want to make sure it can render. And so in Cypress, it's pretty simple actually. I'm going to delete basically all of this. I'm going to write it from scratch again. One of the things that Alex was talking about earlier was the ability to quickly see, using HMR, the changes that you make. And this is true in every tool that is trying to shift left into component-driven development. So if we make a change over here on the right, 2022, 2023, we get a quick reload of the page. This is actually not using HMR for reasons, but Vite, because it is quite quick, will refresh very, very fast. And so the primary purpose of this modal, right, let's think like users, is to display content, right? And display, if we look at the API signature of this base modal, is to display its props. Oh, I wrote this in TypeScript, very good. And so my goal when I'm writing this component is to get probably the modal selector. There's an entire talk on what selector to use. It's not this talk. And that it should contain text of title. T-I-T-L-E. And this is generally how I write Cypress tests and drive my development. Second behavior of a modal. Should probably be able to close it, I think. So there's a few ways you close modals, right? You click off the modal, maybe it closes. Or maybe we had an X button, do slots. It closes when you click on the body. So let's remount it again. Don't really care what's in the title this time, but I want to get the modal. Actually, no, I want to get the body, sorry. And I want to click on it, and then I want to get the modal and make sure that it should not exist, probably, or be visible. There's a difference. It has to do with CSS and presence in the DOM. Base modal view, perfect. Somebody yelled out the correct answer to me. Perfect. So this is generally how I do component-driven development, is I don't ever open my website at all. Like, I never open my website. I'm always in Cypress. And I'm always mounting my components in different ways and interacting with them and then leaving them up to play with them at the end. This is a destructive test at the end, by the way. Like, we're closing the modal. There's no way to get it back. And that's kind of annoying. especially if you're trying to like demo a modal with transitions and such. And this is why we're going to make this a JSX file. I'm gonna change this route. We're gonna copy it actually. Boop, boop. I'm gonna make this a JSX file and show you why I like using JSX. Even though we're Vue developers and I'd never used JSX since I was a Vue developer first. So we're gonna copy the file, say base modal. And the reason that I like JSX is because you're able to now use the reactivity API. So not only do we want to close when we click on the body, I like to make a little playground here. And because of the composition API in Vue, you can import ref, let's say, from the top. And we can say things like const close is going to be equal to ref of false, so we want it to be open by default. And then we're going to say model value. This is really ugly in JSX, actually. Closed, and then on update model value. Wow. There are definitely going to be some bugs in here. Seems legit. Throw a debugger there. And syntax errors. But another point here, by the way, is that all of your dev tools that you're used to just exist here. So like we get our nice compilation error. And this is all source mapped. Like if you click on this, it'll take me to my editor. And this is all natural Vite overlay stuff that you would normally get. So I want to take I'm going to refactor our base modal view to take in, instead of internal state, we're going to make it a model value. It's going to be a Boolean. And so show is going to be equal to model value instead of show. And then on click, we're going to emit out, update model value, comma, bang model value, $emit, because we're inside. And we're going to have broken our previous test. That's fine. I like to use it only to play with one thing at a time. And then I also like to take away the assertions while I'm playing around so I don't have tests yelling at me. And this is why I kind of mean component-driven development, is I'm not test driving this. I've made changes to the base modal. I've refactored the API, and I just kind of deleted the tests as I was doing this. I'm playing with the component, I'm changing the component's API, and at the end, it will be almost accidentally testable, in which we will write assertions, and we will get some confidence, but we've also now coded a bit. Cool. So we've mounted our modal. Let's say that it should be closed by default, base modal. It's not. So let's debug. Model value isn't being passed. Seems like it's passed to me. That seemed legit. Am I supposed to do value false? Okay. Apparently I am. So for those of you who aren't used to the composition API, sometimes you have to unpack it depending on the context. This is one of those times. And then what I want to do is on click of the modal, I want to trigger a debugger statement so I can properly, there you are. I was like, where's my Chrome DevTools? And its Vue is yelling at me. It's like, yeah, you're missing your required prop of title. Okay, fine, I'll add it back. Title is title. Very good. And so now what I want to have happen is I want to make sure my breakpoints are listening, and then I'm going to click off, and hopefully we hit a debugger. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Awesome possum. So last thing we're going to do, I think, is I'm going to show you how to spy that emitted methods are called, and what is the timer? Nobody went over the clock time with me. Great. Okay, so that's counting up, down. It's very difficult to tell. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is, the last thing we're going to do in this coding sesh is I'm going to show you how to test emitted events, and then I'm going to show you how to stretch goal as a slot, but I don't think I'm that optimistic. So the way I would test an emitted event is we have clearly broken on the event that we hope to emit. So let's go and say on, let's say, modal closed is going to be a size spy. And we're going to alias that, and I will show off Cypress's beautiful, beautiful UI for showing you what you've spied on. On modal close, we're going to invoke that spy, and then we're also going to say close.value is new value. Sorry, excuse me. We get the new value over here. And so now we should have something reactive where the parent is controlling the props. And because we're in JSX, we use props like that. Let's see. Let's rerun. For the people in the back, is this really small? Yeah. That really big? Yeah. So, boop, spy. Function was called on modal close. This might look very familiar to you if you've ever used Vue DevTools. It's really handy to know when your events are called and not. So I absolutely love this part of the Cypress DX when you're developing component testing. And you get access to the arguments that you were given. So if we were to have emitted with a set of, if I were to have called the spy, if I would have, instead of making this reactive, if I were to have just say on modal close right here, you wouldn't get it to be reactive because the parent's controlling the state, like this wouldn't work, but you would get this giant counter of how many times you closed it, and you would also get some details about the spy. That's usually how I test emitted events. But because I like playgrounds, I like to be able to open and close them. So the second thing I want to do is I want to add a button to open it back up, because we're using this as a component-driven environment instead of a test runner. So we're going to have a button that says open me, or probably toggle. We're going to have an on click, and we're going to start to make closed. That value is bang closed value. Lovely. So now we have a toggle that works like that, and we can see every time, that's cool. If we were to be as ambitious, and I'm not that ambitious. If we were to be as ambitious as to have a transition, this would be a good time to poke your designer and pull them over and say, hey, does this transition look right? And then after your designer says, yeah, I like it, looks good to me, you go ahead and say, okay, legit, let's make sure that the modal still works. And then you're done, right? So get the modal selector. The modal, because we're saying it's closed by default, so modal should be visible, not be visible by default. 1 second. I have to literally look at the browser when I write my tests. I'm so dependent. I mean, I'm sure a lot of front-end engineers can relate. I'm so dependent on actually looking at the browser. Should not exist. I'm getting a create. vnode thing is not a function. It's scaring me. There we go. All right, perfect. got the thing. It says, yeah, this is the modal. We're going to say that it should be visible. I think that this is inverted. I think this should be called opened. Possibly why I'm confused. And now we're going to get the body and click it. Should not be visible. Then we're going to use testing library. Find by text, toggle. Why not? Click it. No? Do I not have fun? Testing library believes, oh, it's a within. Yeah. Get button, click. Yeah. This is generally how I play around when I'm developing any sort of component, and this is how the entirety of Cypress was created. Everything that you see from this hierarchical spec list to the AUT on the left here, every single page you see was component driven like this. Most of it was written before we even had the shell of the app done. That was a really interesting experience, I think. So I'm going to switch. I think I demoed why I use JSX in order to use views reactivity and toggle on and off and do things like play around with my components. The component test for this is actually quite interesting, like base modal, where it fuzzy searches and filters. Like that's a very interesting component test to watch. But I think we'll watch a quick video of Vite-based color picker test, and then I'll close up. So let's go to Vite-based. You can hear the echoing of how I slam on my enter key. Because I don't use the mouse at all. Yeah, I'm on an older version which had regressions, which is a lot of the problem. What a bummer. I put it on the website because I thought it was pretty, though. So this is how Vite-based tests their app. Vite-based 3, by the way, which is under development, they component drive most everything. There's a suite of about, 20 tests here running. I handpicked one of them because I wanted a very small video. But it's really remarkable to know that you can test things that are canvas-based, like a color picker, like a very, very difficult thing to test. Quite easily in Cypress. And you can dev them in Cypress, and it's extremely satisfying. So back to the slides. I think testing timeline, I'll zoom through this. So component testing for Cypress started about 2018 as Cypress-React-unit test, and it was released under a Cypress employee repo, and the mounting libraries weren't maintained. Performance was slow because we didn't do the thing that everybody's doing now, which is using your dev server to compile your tests. Then we began hiring. We raised $40 million, and a team was hired to complete the alpha, and that was released in 2021. So if you've been using component testing since Cypress 6, that is because you were using the alpha. We rewrote the mounting library using view test utils underneath, mainly because Lachlan, who's the other test utils maintainer, and I, we work at Cypress, so we were like, we're just going to use view test utils because why do the same work twice? Open source. And then we re-architected it to have performance that's as fast as your dev server and as you would expect it to. We spent a year getting alpha adoption, and then we redesigned Cypress 10. Cypress grew a lot. And we rolled out Cypress to early adopters like Vite-based and Chakra UI at the time. And then finally, last week, Wednesday, we released Cypress 10 and redesigned the Cypress docs. What frameworks do we support right now? So we support create React app for Next.js, React with Vite, React with Webpack, Vue with Vite, Vue with Webpack. Cypress 10 is written entirely in Vue 3 and TypeScript with GraphQL. So we're very Vue first kind of in our design of component testing. What's next is Svelte support. I had an Angular demo. I'm not going to do it. Definitely not doing it. But my Gmail is currently filled with notifications from the Svelte Kit library authors trying to add support for tools like Storybook, Vite-based, and Cypress to be able to bundle Svelte apps. You can technically use it today, but it's not officially supported. On September 8th and 9th, I hope to have Svelte supported. What's next? Story integration. This was already built. We ripped it out for Cypress 10. We had finished the work, but it wasn't stable for all different types. So we decided to remove it. All right. So finally, you can get started with npm init Vue. Soda Vue core member, put a lot of work into adding Cypress into the normal way that you would create a Vue app, which is now with Vite. I'm really excited for people to get out there and try it. Don't be afraid of the beta label. We've been doing this since 2018, and yeah, it's a really stable tool. That's all I got. Thanks.